Hello, everybody. David Shuster here. Donald Trump's Attorney General Pam Bondi, who continues to withhold most of the Epstein files, is now facing bipartisan calls for her impeachment.
Pam Bondi is breaking the law. And this is the corrupt system, the Epstein class that people are sick of. So I believe we're going to get bipartisan support in holding her accountable.
Republican Tom Massie of Kentucky says the case against Bondi and her deputies is overwhelming.
They're flouting the spirit and the letter of the law. It's very troubling, the posture that they've taken. And I won't be satisfied until the survivors are satisfied.
The Epstein survivors say the disclosures so far, which are heavily redacted and amount to less than 10% of all the files, are a slap in the face. The law required that all of the files be released by now with explanations for any redactions. There have been no explanations for the redactions, and few documents have been released that are connected to the exploitation of most survivors, including Danny Bensky.
We really didn't get to see as much as we wanted to. This was a law. The law was passed, and they broke the law. That we only saw a very small fraction of what we needed to see.
A group of survivors have now written a letter to Congress declaring the Trump administration has violated the law and that there should be immediate congressional oversight, including hearings. Democrat Ro Khanna says there is a bipartisan effort to draft articles of impeachment against Bondi and have hearings over that. Other options could include holding Bondi in contempt of Congress, and contempt would not require action in the U.S. Senate, as Khanna noted to CBS News.
We only need the House for inherent contempt, and we're building a bipartisan coalition, and it would fine Pam Bondi for every day that she's not releasing these documents. I'll tell you why. I've talked to the survivors, why this is such a slap in the face. One of the survivors said they released her name accidentally, but they still have not released the FBI file about the people who abused her at her request. And the problem here is that there are rich and powerful people. We all know this. There are 1,200 victims. They're rich and powerful people who either engaged in this abuse, covered it up, or were on this island. And what the American people want to know is, who are these people? And instead of holding them accountable, Pam Bondi is breaking the law.
On top of violating the legal requirements that Congress passed and President Trump signed, the Justice Department is also withdrawing some of the images it posted. The Justice Department is citing victims' privacy concerns. One image taken down and later restored features Donald Trump. The DOJ said it eventually determined that no Epstein survivors were in the photograph. Another photo that was posted, then taken down, and remains unavailable on the DOJ website as of this report, is this picture of Donald Trump on a plane with a young girl. The girl is not his daughter. The Justice Department has also redacted Donald Trump's name from documents that were publicly released last year with his name. For example, in 2024, a court released this grand jury document. It read, "A victim, she confided in me about her casual friendship with Donald. Mr. Trump definitely seemed to have a thing for her, and she told me how he kept going on about how he liked her pert nipples. Donald Trump liked flicking and sucking her nipples until they were raw. One evening when we were showering together, she showed me her nipples. They looked incredibly painful as they were red and swollen, and I remember wincing when I looked at them. I also know she had sexual relations with Trump at Jeffrey's New York mansion on regular occasions, as I once met Jen for coffee just before she was going to meet Trump and Epstein together at his mansion." This document, just released again, this time by Pam Bondi's Department of Justice, blacks out every Trump mention. Donald Trump, Mr. Trump are all redacted. So why would the Bondi Justice Department redact Trump's name on a document that had already been released with his name? Well, it's possible the Department of Justice has lost track of what's already in the public domain. In any case, the aggressive redaction effort now demonstrates that all files in the Department of Justice and FBI possession, even if there are duplicates elsewhere, have been scrubbed and blacked out to try and eliminate Donald Trump's name everywhere. And that underscores that instead of complying with the law Congress passed and Donald Trump signed, the Department of Justice is trying, sloppily, to shield Donald Trump. And if the DOJ is trying to protect Trump in the 10% of the documents and photographs released so far, Well, one can only imagine what has happened to the other 90% of the Epstein files that the Department of Justice and FBI are keeping under seal. And those files, according to lawmakers in both parties, include documents, photographs, and videotapes. Keeping those files away from Congress and the public and blacking out every Trump mention in the files posted so far, that is not transparency, that is a cover-up. And it clearly violates the protocols spelled out in the Epstein statute and breaks the law. As far as congressional action, what happens next, though, will be up to a small handful of Republican centrists, given that Democrats are in the House minority. Here's Maryland Democrat Jamie Raskin.
Are you considering, or would you support attempting to impeach the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, as some of other colleagues have suggested is possible?
I mean, look, I think everything is on the table here, but people are coming up with solutions that require a majority in Congress. So we know the Republicans are in control in the House, they're in control in the Senate. So when people say, you know, let's impeach Bondi, let's impeach Robert F. Kennedy, let's impeach Trump or whomever, I say, bring me some Republicans and we can have a conversation.
By all accounts, though, those bipartisan conversations have begun. It is clear to lawmakers in both parties that the Trump administration is continuing to try and shield the president from any embarrassment or worse in the Epstein files. For more than a decade, Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were best friends. They shared everything. And instead of coming clean about Trump and Epstein, Pam Bondi's Justice Department seems to be engaged in a criminal cover-up. Lawmakers in both parties say there will be consequences for Bondi and eventually consequences for Donald Trump himself.
This whole thing is with Epstein is a way of trying to deflect from the tremendous success that the Republican Party has. Like, for instance, today we're building the biggest ships in the world, most powerful ships in the world, and they're asking me questions about Jeffrey Epstein. I thought that was finished.
One of the latest Epstein documents released by the Department of Justice accuses Donald Trump of rape. Headline, unnamed victim alleges Trump raped her. Quote, among the newly released materials is an FBI case file FTA 000-20518 dated October 2020 that contains an allegation of rape involving Trump. The document does not identify the source of the allegation, as names and other identifying details have been redacted. The DOJ website does not make this document very easy to find. You can see on how page 61 the PDF files go from FTA 000-20517 to FTA 000-20520. But if you look in 20517, you will find the document. Here's more reporting on 20518. Mediate rape claim. An FBI case file from late 2020 includes a rape accusation against the president. A limo driver said he overheard a very concerning phone call Trump had in 1995 where Trump kept saying the name Jeffrey. The limo driver, who has his name redacted, said Trump made references to abusing some girl. He later discussed driving Trump with a woman in 1999, the unnamed limo driver said. Donald J. Trump has raped me along with Jeffrey Epstein, the man said the woman told him. The limo driver said he urged the woman to tell the police, but she said she can't because they will kill me. The woman was later found with her head blown off in Oklahoma. To be fair, the limo driver's account of hearing from a woman that Trump raped the woman, well, that would be considered hearsay in a court of law and not allowed in as evidence. However, the accusation itself is incendiary in the court of public opinion, and that may explain why the Department of Justice has made it so challenging to find. The DOJ also posted this note on X saying, some of these documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims made against President Trump that were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. To be clear, the claims are unfounded and false. But how does the Trump administration's Justice Department know these claims are false if they were never pursued or investigated? That's been the key issue in the Epstein case. Many of the clients and accomplices never faced any legal repercussions or investigations. There are other documents in the Epstein files just released that are also generating breaking news.
The Justice Department released a new batch of documents in the Jeffrey Epstein investigation, including chilling new evidence that some viewers may find disturbing. This is a jailhouse letter apparently written by a Jeffrey Epstein. It says J. Epstein. And it was sent to another infamous sex offender. That would be Larry Nassar. The letter appears to include a reference to President Trump.
The Epstein letter says, "Dear Ellen, as you know by now, I have taken the short route home. Good luck. We shared one thing, our love and caring for young ladies at the hope they'd reach their full potential. Our president shares our love of young, nubile girls. When a young beauty walked by, he loved to grab snatch, whereas we ended up snatching grub in the mess halls of the system. Life is unfair. Yours, J. Epstein." On CNN, an Epstein survivor reacted and spoke specifically about Donald Trump.
I think it's very apparent in that specific letter that was just publicized from the Epstein files. I think it's very apparent that there are a group of men that enjoy the company of young women and children. And I think that letter emphasizes that he knew what was going on. And that complicity is enough for me to know you have no business being in the position of power.
But as other documents indicated, it's not just that Donald Trump knew about Epstein's interest in young women. The documents indicate Trump himself enjoyed the young women. And according to at least one person the FBI interviewed, Donald Trump raped a woman. Trump has denied any wrongdoing in the Epstein case, but Trump has also denied traveling on Epstein's plane more than once or twice. Headline, many more Epstein flights. An early 2020 email in the documents claimed Trump traveled on Epstein's private plane many more times than previously has been reported. Those flights include 8 that happened between 1993 and 1996, according to the email, which has had the name of the sender and receiver redacted. If Donald Trump is privately infuriated over the Epstein files, well, he isn't showing much anger in public. Instead, Trump has been subdued and matter of fact when asked about his reaction.
This whole thing is with Epstein is a way of trying to deflect from the tremendous success that the Republican Party has. Like, for instance, today we're building the biggest ships in the world, most powerful ships in the world, and they're asking me questions about Jeffrey Epstein. I thought that was finished.
Oh, it's not finished, Donald, because now we have seen documents accusing you of rape. Also, the Department of Justice has only released about 15% of all the Epstein files in its possession. And so far, the DOJ has not released any of the Epstein videotapes. Witnesses say that Epstein recorded nearly everything and everybody in his mansions. And documents released so far confirm that Epstein did have an elaborate surveillance and recording system. So the release of Trump Epstein evidence has just begun.
The fact that he is named in multiple ways, what occurs to me in reading, just trying to go through the batch of documents that's been released, Chris, is that everybody that was in Epstein's orbit, including the president, knew what Epstein was doing. There are references by one person that we think was the former Duke of York to inappropriate guests, women. So everything in these files seems to indicate that, number one, Trump was deeply engaged with Epstein and that he knew what was going on. And the fact that their relationship was built, according to the New York Times report, on a desire for young women, really focused around that whole aspect of what Epstein was about, I think is very important. I will also note that when you initially tried to search the files for Trump, nothing showed up. If you searched for Trump with a space, then there were multiple items that showed up. So clearly, that to me also raises questions of, did the DOJ try to block the search for just the word Trump, but then they forgot to block the search for the word Trump with a space after it? I don't know how long that's going to stay live on the DOJ site, frankly, now that it's been pointed out.
By all accounts, Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were the best of friends. They shared everything. And that itself may help explain why the Department of Justice has been trying to black out most Trump mentions, publicizing the files haphazardly, and refusing so far to follow the law's requirement to release everything, including, fair or not, accusations that Donald Trump raped a woman.